Kill the boy, Jon Snow. Kill the boy, and let the man be born.
Kill the boy, and let the man be born. This is one of the most iconic lines in Game of Thrones. An old, blind Maester passing wisdom to Jon Snow. A call to maturity. A call to leadership. It's inspirational. It gives you chills. But what if I told you that this line wasn't wisdom at all? What if I told you it was a confession? That hidden inside these words is the guilt of a man who accidentally created a monster. Because Aemon didn't invent this advice for Jon Snow. He said it once before, decades earlier, to his little brother Egg. And that advice, kill the boy, didn't create a great king. It created a man so desperate, so obsessed, so broken by power, that he attempted something far worse than anything the Mad King ever did. He tried to burn his own family alive. To understand why Summerhall isn't just a tragedy, but the darkest moment in Targaryen history, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to talk about who Egg was before the crown destroyed him. As always, I'm going to break down exactly why this event changes everything you think you know about the Targaryens. But first, we need some context. In the show, most people only know Egg as a name. A dying old man whispers it, and we feel sad. But in the books, Egg is a character. A real, breathing, fully realized person. And his story is one of the most beautiful things George R.R. Martin has ever written. Egg was Aegon Targaryen, the fourth son of Maekar Targaryen. He was never supposed to sit on the Iron Throne. He wasn't raised in the Red Keep learning politics and warfare. Instead, he shaved his head to hide his silver hair and ran off to travel the roads of Westeros disguised as a common boy, squiring for a giant hedge knight named Sir Duncan the Tall. Think about that for a second. A Targaryen prince, voluntarily walking through the mud with peasants, sleeping in ditches, eating scraps. And he loved it. Because out there on the road, Egg saw something no Targaryen prince had ever seen before. He saw how the common people actually lived. He saw the poverty. He saw the cruelty of lords who treated small folk like insects. And it changed him. It gave him something dangerous for a Targaryen to have. Empathy. Meanwhile, his older brother Aemon had gone to the Citadel, forged his chain, and become a Maester. These two brothers, the Bookworm and the Wanderer, were the only Targaryens who chose to be good men instead of great men. They were best friends. But then, as always happens in this family, tragedy struck. Their father died. Their older brothers died. And suddenly the Great Council was looking at Aemon and saying, "You should be king." He refused. He reaffirmed his maester's vows, and then he made the harder choice. He went to the wall. Not because he was forced, because he understood that as long as he remained in the south, factions could use him to challenge Egg's claim. So Aemon removed himself from the game entirely. But before he left, he looked at his little brother, the sweet kid who traveled the roads with a hedge knight, and he told him something that would echo through the rest of their lives. It takes a man to rule. An Aegon, not an egg. Kill the boy, and let the man be born. And then Aemon left for the wall. He thought he was protecting his brother. He thought exile was love. But what he actually did was leave Egg completely alone with a crown he never wanted, and advice that would slowly poison him. So did Egg kill the boy? Yes. And at first it looked like it worked. King Aegon V, Aegon the Unlikely, became one of the most beloved kings in Targaryen history. He remembered the small folk. He remembered the roads, the poverty, the suffering he'd witnessed as a child. And he tried to fix it. He pushed through sweeping reforms to protect peasants from noble cruelty. He wanted to limit the power of the great lords. He wanted to give rights to the people who had none. And the lords of Westeros despised him for it. The Lannisters, the Baratheons, the great houses, they blocked him at every turn. They sabotaged his reforms. They broke their marriage pacts with his children. His own son Duncan fell in love with a common woman named Jenny of Oldstones and threw away a strategic betrothal to the Baratheons, triggering a brief rebellion. Everything Egg tried to build, the powerful tore down. Now, let me explain it this way. Imagine spending your entire youth walking among the poorest people in the world. You see their suffering, You feel their pain. And then you become the most powerful man alive, and you try to help them. But every lord, every institution, every system tells you no. Year after year, decade after decade. You have the crown, but you don't have the power. Because in Westeros, power doesn't come from good intentions. It comes from fear. And the only thing that ever made the great houses fear the Targaryens was dragons. This is where the boy truly dies. Because somewhere in those decades of frustration, Aeg stopped trying to be a good king and started trying to be a powerful one. He became obsessed with hatching dragons, not for conquest, not for glory, but because he genuinely believed that dragons were the only way to force the lords to let him help the people they were crushing. And that obsession led him to Summerhall. Now here's where most people stop. Most content creators will tell you that Summerhall was a tragic accident, a pyromancer experiment gone wrong, a sad old king who played with wildfire and got burned. And yes, that's what the surface level history says. But if you actually dig into the books, into the fragments and the clues that George R.R. Martin has scattered across thousands of pages, you realize something horrifying. Summerhall was not an accident. It was a ritual. A deliberate, planned blood magic sacrifice. And the man who planned it was Aeg. The evidence starts with a line most people completely overlook. In A Dance with Dragons, when Jon Snow tells Maester Aemon that Stannis Baratheon might burn his own daughter Shireen to wake stone dragons, Aemon doesn't react with shock. Instead, he says something chilling. He says that better men than Stannis have done worse things than this. Stop and think about who Aemon is talking about. Better men than Stannis. In the entire Targaryen Dynasty, there is only one king Aemon would describe as a better man. His brother, Aeg. Aemon is telling us, right there in the text, that what Aeg attempted at Summerhall was significantly more horrifying than burning a child alive. Let that sink in. And then there's the second clue. In the same book, a Queen's man mutters a phrase about waking stone dragons. 2 kings to wake the dragon. The father first, and then the son, so both die kings. Now, if you take a closer look at this phrase and apply it to Summerhall, a truly dark picture emerges. This wasn't a science experiment with wildfire. This was a sequential blood sacrifice modeled on ancient Valyrian magic. Aeg gathered 7 dragon eggs at his summer palace. He brought pyromancers and their wildfire. He brought a woods witch, the same one Jenny of Oldstones had introduced to court, a prophet who had already predicted that the prince that was promised would be born from the line of Aerys and Rhaella. And the ritual demanded royal blood. King's blood. Not just any king's blood, but the blood of men who held the title of king at the precise moment of their death. The mechanics were horrific. Aeg would burn first. The moment he died, the kingship would transfer to his son. His son would burn next. Then the crown passes again, each death feeding the ritual, each death amplifying the magical potency of the sacrifice. 2 kings to wake the dragon, the father first, and then the son. And it gets worse. Because Princess Rhaella was at Summerhall that night, she was in labor. The ritual was deliberately timed to coincide with the birth of Rhaegar Targaryen. The Woods Witch had prophesied that the prince that was promised would come from Aerys and Rhaella's line. And Aeg, the sweet boy who once walked the roads helping peasants, had become so consumed by his obsession that he was willing to sacrifice a newborn baby to hatch his dragons. When Aemon told Jon that better men than Stannis had done worse, he wasn't speaking in abstractions. He was speaking from classified first-hand knowledge of what his own brother attempted. But the ritual didn't reach its full completion, and the reason is perhaps the most heartbreaking part of the entire story. The official history in the world of Ice and Fire is heavily censored. The pages about Summerhall are covered in ink blots, as if someone desperately tried to hide what really happened. But through the blots, one fragment survives. It says the tragedy would have been far worse if not for the valor of the Lord Commander. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard at Summerhall was Sir Duncan the Tall. Dunk, Egg's oldest friend, the giant hedge knight who had carried him on his shoulders through the roads of Westeros when they were young. Let me explain it this way. Imagine you have spent your entire adult life protecting someone. Not because of duty, because you love them. You watch them grow from a wild little kid into a king. And then one night, you realize that the person you love most in the world has gone mad. That he's about to burn his own children and grandchildren alive in a demonic ritual. And you have to choose. Your oath to your king, or the lives of innocent people. Dunk chose. He turned against Egg. He fought through the fire, likely battling pyromancers, possibly battling Egg himself, to save the pregnant Rhaella. He pulled her from the flames, and in doing so, he sacrificed his own life. The big hedge knight who once protected a little bald boy on the road died stopping that same boy from becoming a monster. Rhaegar Targaryen was born in the smoke and the screams. Egg burned to death. His son Prince Duncan burned to death. Sir Duncan the Tall burned to death. And the 7 dragon eggs never hatched. And this is exactly why the survivors never spoke about what happened. Think about it. If Summerhall were simply a tragic accident, there would be public mourning. There would be monuments. There would be historical records. But instead, there is absolute silence. The pages are literally blotted with ink. The surviving Targaryens, Jaehaerys, Aerys, Rhaella, maintained a lifelong vow of silence about that night. The only explanation that makes sense is a cover-up. Because if the realm ever discovered that the beloved, pro-small folk Aegon the Unlikely had descended into fanatical madness and tried to slaughter his own family in a blood magic ritual, it would have destroyed the Targaryen dynasty overnight. So they buried it. They called it an accident, and they never spoke of it again. But Aemon knew. Freezing at the wall, thousands of miles away, Aemon knew exactly what his brother had done. Because someone told him. A raven, a letter, something reached him with the truth. And for over 40 more years, Maester Aemon lived with that knowledge. The advice he gave Egg, kill the boy, hadn't just killed the boy. It had killed everyone. The boy died, and the man who was born in his place became something worse than the Mad King. Everyone talks about the Mad King Aerys as the worst Targaryen. Burn them all. He wanted to destroy King's Landing with wildfire. He's the monster, the cautionary tale, the villain. But Aerys was clinically insane. His cruelty was the product of a broken mind. Egg was sane. Egg made a conscious, rational decision that the ends justified the means. He did the math, he weighed the cost, and he decided that his own family, his son, his grandchildren, a newborn baby, were an acceptable price to pay for dragons. That's not madness. That's something colder. That's conviction. And the most terrifying thing about it is that you can almost understand why. Because Egg wasn't doing this for power. He wasn't doing it for vanity. In his mind, he was doing it for the small folk, for the people he had walked among as a child, for the people the lords were crushing. He believed, truly believed, that dragons were the only way to save them. And that belief, that desperate, righteous belief, turned the kindest Targaryen into the most dangerous one. George R.R. Martin once said that the only thing worth writing about is the human heart in conflict with itself. And Summerhall is the ultimate expression of that idea. Because the tragedy isn't that a bad man did a bad thing. The tragedy is that a good man did the worst thing imaginable. And he did it because he couldn't stop being good. His empathy broke him. His love for the small folk consumed him. And in the end, the boy who once walked the roads helping peasants died in a fire of his own making, reaching for dragons that would never come. And thousands of miles away, a blind old man at the wall received a raven, and he understood. The advice he gave, kill the boy, had set all of this in motion. He told Egg to become a man. Egg became a man. And the man burned everything. Aemon lived for another 40 years after Summerhall, the last dragon, freezing in the dark. And when he finally lay dying, when dementia stripped away the decades of guilt and grief and duty, his mind didn't go back to the wall. It didn't go back to the citadel. It went back to before. before the crown, before the advice, before the fire.
Egg. I dreamed that I was old.
He wanted to wake up. He wanted it all to have been a nightmare. He wanted to be a boy again, lying in the Red Keep, with his little brother safe in the next room, before he told him to kill the boy, before the man was born. But the dream was real, and the boy was dead, and the brother he loved had burned alive, chasing the dragons that were supposed to save the world. That is the tragedy of Summerhall. Not an accident, not a footnote. The moment the Targaryen dynasty truly died. Because after Summerhall, everything falls. Aerys goes mad. Rhaegar becomes obsessed with the same prophecy that killed his grandfather. Robert's rebellion happens. The dynasty collapses. And it all traces back to one night, one ritual, one man who was told to kill the boy. The Targaryens didn't fall because of dragons. They fell because of a boy who was too kind for the crown he wore, and the brother who loved him too much to stay. The one who survived that night was Aegon's grandson, Aerys, the last Targaryen to sit on the Iron Throne. And even that didn't last long. Robert's rebellion brought him down. But did it really? Because there's a moment in the show that always nagged at me, when Jaime tells us his father showed up at the gates with the whole Lannister army at his back, promising to defend the city. They let him in, and Tywin sacked the city. What actually happened behind those gates, the show never tells us. But I broke it all down in this video right here. And if this deep dive hit you the way it hit me, the mysterious algorithm demands you like and subscribe. Until then, stay cult.